I have been wanting to try out a yoke steering wheel on my Model 3 for quite some time now. I can't believe I've waited this long to try one out. Thanks to EVBase for sending me this item to unbox and install today. It comes in white and black, and you have 3 trim choices of glossy carbon fiber, matte carbon fiber, or no trim at all. Let's get started. Here is the shipping box I received today. You can see that the outside shows the name of the product and it's fairly low key. Let's unbox this now. Opening the lids, we find a large, thick foam piece that provides protection. I'll lift that up and out of the way. Here is the steering yoke itself wrapped in a fabric bag. This is the EVBase Tesla Model 3 and Model Y yoke steering wheel in black Nappa leather. The leather cover has stitching on the inside edge as seen here. Along the edges of the side there is glossy carbon fiber. The center area and plastic arms are identical to the original and have to be for compatibility. As I will show later, I will transfer the airbag and control module from the original wheel to this yoke. Underneath that, we have 3 carbon fiber components for the trim that will replace the ones that came with the car. This one is for the bottom. This one is for the left side. And this final one is for the right side. Here's a close-up look at the left trim piece. These have a carbon fiber outer layer attached to an ABS plastic. And here is the centerpiece. They do have a nice 3-dimensional look to them. It's also available in matte carbon fiber too. Let me place them on the yoke to show you roughly where they go. My car happens to already have real carbon fiber trim pieces, so I will not be using these for the project. But I will mention them later in the installation when you need to put them on. Here are the tools that are needed for the project. This is an H10 drive bit, which is a 10mm hex that is for removing and reinstalling the center bolt on the steering column. You need a 4 to 6 inch extender due to the depth of the wheel. It attaches to the end like this. Next is a breaker bar for removing the bolt. This is one that I use for when I rotate my tires. This is a torque wrench for reattaching the bolt. The proper torque is 59 foot-pounds. Both this and the breaker bar are 1/2 inch drive, but 3/8 inch drive also works. This is a 10mm hex bit for removing the 12-volt battery lead. Next is a thin flathead screwdriver. This is for removing the airbag module. If you have 2 of them, it makes it even easier. Long, thin Allen wrenches also work well. A screwdriver with a T6 bit is for the carbon fiber trim pieces. A T25 bit is for the control module. And that's it for the tools that are needed. Make sure the car is parked with the steering wheel straight and even. You can only do this while the car is not in the park gear. When done, put the car back in park. We begin by shutting down the Tesla. When working on the car's electrical system, it's always a good idea to power down the car and turn off the high voltage system. Before doing the next step, open the hood and the doors. Go to the main menu and press Safety, and then press the Power Off button. At this point, if you touch any button, the car will turn back on, so avoid touching anything. Wait about 15 minutes until you hear this sound. Go to the front of the car and remove the service panel. Using a 10mm socket wrench, loosen the negative terminal cable on the 12-volt battery. Remove the wire and place it away from any metal objects. I put it behind the plastic mount right here. Go to the back seat and flip the two latches that are on the left and right sides of the seat where it attaches to the riser. Angle the seat and lift it up. You don't have to remove it. On the passenger side, you will see a black foam pad. Remove it, and underneath there is the high voltage connector. Flip the latch on the connector and then pull it out. Place it off to the side, and then you can lower the seat. Now the car is fully powered down and you can safely work with the electrical wiring. Now I can remove the existing steering wheel. There are two holes on the steering wheel that are used to remove the airbag module. Use a thin flathead screwdriver and press into the left side hole under the steering wheel. Press it until you hear it click. Now do the same for the right side. This is the airbag buckle that holds it in place. The airbag module will not come out unless both sides are pressed in. Now the airbag is loose in the housing. Gently pull it out, but watch out for the wires. The wire from the airbag connects to the steering wheel base right here where you see the red arrow pointing at the yellow connector. Pull out the yellow airbag connector. I found that I had to press the clips on both sides of the connector towards the center, then pull it out. The airbag module is fully disconnected. Now carefully place it aside in a safe location. If you have a refreshed Model 3 or Y with a heated steering wheel, there will be an additional wire at the top of the steering wheel about where the arrow is showing right now. Remove it with a T25 bit, unscrew the bolt holding the wire, and take it out. Unplug the red connector on the left side of the wheel. This is for the horn. This works just like the yellow connector. Press the tabs towards the center and then pull the plug out of the connector. With the breaker bar, extender, and H10 bit, remove the center 10mm bolt. Turn it left to loosen. Having the long breaker bar really helps if it's really tight. I found that if I use my legs to brace the wheel, it keeps it from moving and provides better leverage to turn the breaker bar. Place the bolt aside after it's unscrewed. Gripping both sides of the wheel, pull it straight out from the steering column. The wheel is now free. I'll take it over to my workbench for the next steps. Here's a side-by-side view of the yoke and the original wheel. I wanted to give you a comparison of the size. Placing the yoke over the wheel so that the center columns line up, you can see how much wider the bottom rectangular shape is compared to the wheel. The bottom of the wheel does match up with the bottom of the yoke, but you can see how much the corners extend out from where the wheel is in comparison. The yoke grip is a bit thicker and a little more padded and cushion-like compared to the original wheel, which is much harder. I think the yoke feels pretty good to my hand. Remove the 4 trim panel screws with the T25 bit screwdriver. If you have a refresh car with the heated wheel, disconnect the blue connector that's on the left side of the wheel. Mine doesn't have it, so it's not here to show you. You may have to bend the plastic parts out of the way to reach all of the bolts. And once all of the bolts are out, the trim panel can now be removed. Unsnap all around the perimeter of the panel. Pull up the trim slowly, and it should eventually all be loose. Now the whole piece can be taken out. There is one more thing we need on the original wheel, and that's the airbag buckle, which is the thick U-shaped wire that is tucked around the 3 holes on the wheel. Push the wire with the thin screwdriver as you see here. Once removed, place it aside. I recommend laying it in the same direction as you took it out. This heavy wire will be moved to the new yoke. And now the original wheel is done. I would store it in a box just in case you need it for later in the future. Take the new yoke and place it in the workspace. I will do the opposite procedure as I did with the original wheel. First up is the airbag buckle that I just removed. Be very careful to insert the buckle in exactly the same direction as it is on the original wheel. Since I already have the real carbon fiber inserts on the control module, I will skip to the next step. If you get the glossy or matte carbon fiber trim option, you will need to replace the 3 subcomponents on the modules and replace the outer covers for each of those on the new trim. Then screw the components back into the module. This step uses the T6 bit on the screwdriver. Place the wheel control module onto the yoke. If you have the wheel heater, now is the time to attach the plug from the yoke to the connector on the control module on the left side of the yoke area. Then you can press down. All along around the edges, it will snap into place. Since I don't have the wheel heater, the cable needs to be moved so that it doesn't block anything. And since the module wasn't sliding into place, I had to lift it up so that I could reroute it. Once everything fits, press down around the outer edge. Attach the 4 bolts back to their locations inside the wheel and use the T25 screwdriver to tighten them in. Make sure to press the 3 round plastic sections into the metal holes below them. I am now done reinstalling all of the original wheel components into the new yoke. It's ready for installing into the car. Place the yoke wheel into the steering column. There's a guide pin for alignment, so it should be easy to keep it level. Press it straight in. The grooves on the male and female ends should fit well. You may need to wiggle it a little to go in. You can pretty much tell when it's in all the way. The back of the yoke should be flush with the steering column behind it. Insert the 10mm hex bolt. Hand thread it into the opening. Then use the bit to further tighten it by hand so that it is snug. Set the torque wrench to 59 foot-pounds. This is the spec that is needed for this bolt. Then use the torque wrench until it clicks, indicating the proper torque is reached. You may need to hold the wheel while doing this to get better leverage. Okay, the center bolt is firmly attached. We can move on to attaching the connectors. Take the red plug on the upper left side and plug it into the left connector. Press in until it clicks. Next, plug in the heating connector if you have one. Place the airbag near the wheel to attach the wire. Take the yellow plug and place it into the right connector, which is for the airbag. Now take the airbag module and carefully insert it into the opening on the yoke. Press all around the outside of the airbag module to snap it into place. Remember that there are pins that hold it in on the left, right, and bottom of this module. A few more presses to verify it's firmly attached, and I am done with the yoke wheel. Time to reconnect the power. Now we reverse the process of attaching the electrical connections. Put the high voltage connector back in place, and also don't forget the foam piece. Back under the hood, connect the 12-volt battery negative terminal and tighten up the bolt. Then place the service panel back on. Get back in the driver's seat, and it may take a few minutes for everything to turn back on. Check both of the left and right control wheels and the horn itself to verify that all parts are working. Here's a look at the finished installation, starting on the left side, moving around to the front, and then over to the right side. I have driven the car for the last few days with the yoke, and it takes a little getting used to. I never really drove the car holding the top of the wheel before, however it was common to do when you're doing turns. I have gotten used to holding the bottom of the wheel and pushing down on the top of the right side to turn right, or the top of the left side to turn left. Overall, it's pretty relaxing to use while on long drives and using autopilot. Here you can see me holding the wheel at 3 p.m. and 9 p.m. positions. I can also grip at the lower left and right corners, or even holding the bottom near the center spoke. It does give a much better view if you have a driver's screen, either the large 9 or 10 inch screens or this mini screen that I'm using right now. I like the cushy grip of the wheel too, not too firm and not too soft. So in conclusion, obviously the yoke is not for everyone. There is some restriction in control by not having the top of the wheel in place. However, I don't have a problem with it, and it seems to work well for me. In some ways, this makes the car even more unique than it was before. I like the better view of the driver info screens and the general comfort of the grips. The black leather is stitched well, with no blemishes on the surface. The ability to have carbon fiber trim either in gloss or matte is great if you have a carbon fiber theme going, like I do. If not, you can get one without trim. The installation is straightforward. The only two areas that may be tricky are the removal of the airbag module with the two holes on either side of the steering wheel. The other is removing the center bolt. If you're not using a large breaker bar like I did, smaller tools will be tougher to get good leverage. I also suggest using the torque wrench to make sure the bolt is tightened to spec, which is 59 foot-pounds. If you're interested in this item either in the white leather or black leather versions, see the link in the description. Use code RANGER for a 15% discount on your order. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.